Welcome to my world, where you will experience an atmosphere of love, relevant subjects, and motivation. So let's talk about things that matter. What matters to you matters to me. Well, we are back. I'm Henry Harris. Welcome to the Brother Henry and You Show. I am so excited that you're watching. Did you know that? I'm really excited that you're watching. I do not take that for granted, and I really hope that this series on toxic masculinity has helped you in some way. Maybe you've learned some things that you didn't know, and specifically for the men, I really hope that this has really helped you in some ways in your masculinity. And maybe it's helped you in other ways. So I just really hope and pray that this message has helped you in a way. And I believe it has, because it has helped me. You know, last week we basically was a foundational message. What is toxic masculinity? When does it start? We talked about the roles and different traits of toxic masculinity. It was really good last week, but this week I want to go a little bit deeper, and I want to talk about breaking masculine stereotypes. Let's just be honest, we all have stereotypes against something. Well, that's against a certain culture, a certain religion, a certain race. We all have stereotypes, whether we admit that or not. But today we're focusing on breaking masculine stereotypes, because the reality is that they do need to be broken. So today I would like to discuss breaking masculine stereotypes. As far as I can think, there has always been and may always be stereotypes concerning not only men, but also even women. I feel that it's important to address these stereotypes to better get an understanding of them. Since this message is concerning masculinity, and just to remind you, that word masculinity means maleness, manliness. That's what that word means, a man. I think gender stereotypes would be more fitting for this subject, which leads to this question. What is gender stereotypes? What is that? Here are some gender stereotypes. This is what gender stereotypes is. Gender stereotypes are an overgeneralization about the characteristics of an entire group based on gender. While gender stereotypes have been popularly perceived as having negative connotations, they can also have positive ones as well. Gender stereotypes can be positive, and they can also be negative. So let me give some examples of some negative stereotypes and also some positive stereotypes. Here are some examples. Black people are good at basketball. Now that is a positive gender stereotype, but it's also negative. How is it negative? Because black people are not the only ones that's good at basketball. So what happens there? What makes it a gender stereotype? This is what makes it a gender stereotype. When you have taken an entire group based on gender, race, I said cultural earlier, even sexual orientation. When you've taken an entire group, which in this case it would be black people, and you've created a gender stereotype based on one race. Now, like I said, that's positive. Black people are good at basketball. But what makes that negative is that that's partially true. because white people are good at basketball, Mexicans are good at basketballs, Latinos are good at basketballs, white people are good at basketball. Here's another one. Italians are great cooks. Are they? I think they are. That is a positive gender stereotype. But it can also be negative because Italians are not the only ones that are great cooks. So what is the gender stereotype here? Italians. This is, like I said, if you understand what I'm saying, gender stereotypes is an overgeneralization about character of entire group based on gender or race or whatever. It's black people here, it's Italians here. The next one is women tend to be better nurturers. So what is the gender stereotype here? Women. Now, that's positive. Women are great nurturers, but is that true? No, because I am one. I think I'm a great nurturer. I have a 7-year-old daughter, and I nurture her and take care of her as good as her mom does, and she appreciates that. So that's positive, but it's partially true. The next one is Jewish people are cheap. That is another overgeneralization of an entire group. Jewish people are cheap. That's not true. It may be true in their case, but that's not true because there are times where I'm cheap. I wouldn't consider myself cheap, but at the same time, I'm frugal. Like if there's something that I want, I don't have to get it like, I got to get it right now. I'm not that type of person. I'm one of those people that I don't mind waiting if there's something I really want. So, like I said, it's an overgeneralization. This is a gender stereotype. Jewish people. And the last one, white people are more fortunate than others. So, can you tell me what is the gender stereotype here? White people. And we also know that that's partially true because black people are fortunate. I know many black people that are fortunate. I know white people that are fortunate. I know certain religions that are fortunate, certain groups and organizations that consist of many cultures and races and nationalities that are fortunate. So this may be positive, but it doesn't mean that it's fully true. It's an overgeneralization, putting all white people into one category that white people are more fortunate than others. And we know that's not true. These may be positive stereotypes, all of these, in the minds of some, but what makes them rather offensive is that they are not always true, and I've made that clear. We know that blacks are not the only ones who are good at basketball. We know that men are good nurturers too. We know that anyone can be cheap. We know Italians aren't the only ones who are great cooks. We know that being fortunate or well off is not limited to whites only. This is what overgeneralization is when you include a person, race, or group of people into the same box. Race, gender, what was the other one? Race, gender, person, or group. This is what overgeneralization is when you include a person, race, group, or gender. I added gender into the same box, and that's what it is. What is a stereotype? A stereotype is a cognitive shortcut. That is, it allows your brain to make a snap judgment based on immediately visible characteristics such as gender, race, or age. Like I said, we all stereotype people all the time, whether we agree with that or not. I love this quote by Jennifer Lee. She says, positive stereotypes don't just affect how people are perceived by others, they also distort how people view themselves. So many people have several stereotypes or biases about masculinity or even a person. So it's time to walk away from all these stereotypes that would cause you to view a person differently or to make a snap judgment. It's time for you to walk away from our biases, that line of thinking, our overgeneralization of people, well, that's race, gender, person, or group. It's time to walk away from that because you are better than that. So let's talk about this. How are stereotypes formed? How are they created? Most stereotypes are developed through personal experience. Did you know that? Most stereotypes, if you really think about it, are developed through personal experience. Can I give you an example? Let's say you went to Walmart, and you know Walmart has hundreds and thousands of stores worldwide. Let's say you went to Walmart, and let's say you went and got some milk, and you got home and you found out that the milk was spoiled. And you're upset, and now you're like, you know what? All these Walmarts are just ridiculous. I will never go to another Walmart ever again. You just stereotyped Walmart. I'm just using this for an example. Okay, since we're talking about masculinity, here's another one. You ladies who've been in bad relationships with, maybe he was a bad guy. Maybe he abused you. Maybe he didn't treat you right. Maybe he didn't do you right. So now you've developed a stereotype about men, and you quote this: all men are the same. Now, if you hadn't had that experience with that man, you would have never developed that stereotype. Do you understand what I'm saying? But because you had a personal experience and hands-on with that, you came out with the conclusion, based on what one guy did to you, that all men are this way. Sometimes women develop this stereotype based on past experience with bad men. What is negative about this is that some women, based off of a few bad experiences with men, will place all men into the same box. And we know that this is far from the truth. Even men who have had bad experiences with women, you can't put, well, all women are just this and just a bleep, bleep, bleep and bleep, bleep that. You can't do that. Just because you had a bad experience with the last 3 or 4 women, don't mean that gives you the right to overgeneralize or put all women in the same box. That's just not right. Here's another one that I'm thinking about. All black women, they got attitudes. Well, white women got attitudes. That is a stereotype. We also learn stereotypes from social media. We learn stereotypes from our parents and friends and significant others and peers. So we don't learn it just from our own personal experiences, and we don't develop these stereotypes from our own personal experiences, but sometimes we learn it through traditionalism. I think it's something that's traded down. I know a lot of people are against interracial marriage. That's one race going and connecting themselves in a relationship, sometimes marital, with another race. Now, many parents, I'm giving you an example, will say, you can't do that. That's not right. Those parents that's a stereotype. That's bias. And that's how they form that stereotype on interracial marriage. They see that it's wrong. So it can be formed through social media. It can be formed through friends. It's also important to know that stereotypes lead to social categorization, which is one of the reasons for prejudiced attitudes. Examples, them versus us mentality or attitude. Bias and stereotypes impacts us all, no matter who you are. It impacts us all. Even as a man myself, when I hear things like all men are the same, it doesn't affect me, but at the same time, it makes me ask, why did that individual develop that stereotype about all men? Or if I hear a man saying that all women are the same, what brought you to that conclusion? See, the problem is that we never discover our why. And until you discover your why, you will really never get the full answers that you're looking for. And we know that stereotypes is wrong. We know we shouldn't just shove everybody, one group, one race, one gender in one box. We know in our hearts, deep down inside, whether you want to admit it or not, you know that that is not true how you're feeling. So let's debunk one of the myths concerning men. What are some of the strong stereotypes about men that's often heard? We're going to talk about some of these right now. And I really believe that these are going to help you. Here are some stereotypes about men that we often hear. We hear real men. As I said in the last episode, what does that even mean? Real men. A real man got to do this, and a real man got to do that. A real man does this. Okay, and I'll say it again as I said in the other episode, just to refresh your memory. If he doesn't meet your expectations, does that then disqualify him from his manhood? Here's another strong stereotype. All men are the same. I just said this earlier. Sometimes this is said, especially by women who've had bad experiences with men. I think it's a cycle, just a little treat on the side for you. I think this is just a cycle that you need to break. If you view all men the same, there's an issue with you, honey. There is. There's a problem with you internally that you have to discover. You have to discover your worth. You have to discover how valuable you are. What is your value? Why do you keep attracting these type of men? Why do you feel that all men are the same? If you are a man, you feel that way about a woman. It's a cycle. You need to break that. Because if you have that attitude and that stereotype or that bias thinking that all men are the same, you will never, and I'm not trying to discourage you, I'm not saying there's not hope for your happiness, you will never truly have a real, authentic, loving relationship or marriage. I don't care how many times you marry, I don't care how many relationships you go in, you have to realize that you are eventually the problem. Not the men. Not the men. All men are not the same, and I can say that because I am not those men. Here goes another one. Men are all abusers. I just had a lady the other day tell me that it's more common among men to abuse women than it is women to abuse men, which I slightly disagree with her. Now, it's more common that you hear women talking about abusive men, and sometimes they project or portray that all men are abusers sometimes, like I just said, this is how it's formed through personal experience. And even this within itself, people having the mindset that all men are abusers. Sometimes that comes from our own personal bias and our own personal stereotypes and our own personal experience. If every man you've been with abused you, you're going to see every other guy down the road as potential abusers. Here goes another stereotype. Men don't listen. Now, I'm going to speak for myself. It's a learning experience for me. But to say that all men don't listen, it's not true. There are some men out there that sit down, they listen, they're receptive, they take advice, they try to work things out. There are some men that do listen. Number 6, men are all dogs. How many times have we heard that one? Men are just all dogs. They're all cheaters, and once a cheater, always a cheater. That's another stereotype. Why do you feel that way? What did I say? Get to your why. Why do you feel that? Why do you feel like all men are dogs? Number 7, men are jerks. All men are jerks. I think men may have jerkish behaviors. I'm not going to say all men because there will be a stereotype. I can make a stereotype about women, but I'm not going to do that. But we do it every day. And sometimes we're not even aware of the stereotypes that we make about certain people or certain groups. 8, men can't do stereotypical women duties. They can't cook, men can't clean, men can't do laundry, men can't do that. That is not true, folks. Women are not the only ones that can do things like that. Men can do that. I know some men that can do it just as better than a woman can do it. Number 9, all men want is sex. I tell you, that's all they want is sex. I tried to date him, and that's all he wanted is sex. Now, why are you attracting those type of men? And that's not true. There's a lot of men out there that's not trying to get into your pants. Here, number 10, real men don't cry. Number 11, men don't like commitment. Strong stereotypes, negative ones may I add, but that's just far from the truth. So if this is how you truly feel about yourself, why do I feel this way about this person, race, or group? And how can I seek help with stereotyping these individuals? Here's a good quote from Todd Gorman that I really like. Men are portrayed less of a man if they show a dedicated, careful side of themselves. We're supposed to be brash, have a heart of stone, intimidating, and afraid of nothing, because we'll be displayed as weak. And that's exactly what toxic masculinity has done to many people today. It has caused us to convince ourselves that this is what a man is. You cannot show a sign of weakness. You got to be strong. You got to take charge. I will hope today that all these stereotypes, whether you're a man and you believe these things about yourself, or you're a woman who have said these things, if you're a woman and you've said these things, you need to go and ask yourself why. As I said earlier, why do you feel this way? Why are you attracting these type of people into your life? What brought you to this conclusion that you see one group all the same? You see one race all the same? What makes you think that way? There is help. There is help. And I really believe that after these 2 sessions that I've just done with you, that you should have a clear understanding on what toxic masculinity is, when does it start, how are they formed. We talked about different stereotypes, the positive and negative stereotypes. We talked about gender stereotypes. I really hope, and I even gave examples because I want you to have a clear understanding of what this is all about. I got to be honest with you. I really enjoyed my time with you, and I've been looking forward to talking about this. So if you know a guy who has toxic masculinity, or you know someone who find himself always stereotyping people, this series is not to bring anyone down. I think in some ways we all have some toxic behaviors and some toxic ways. But as I said earlier, you can't really fix a problem until you first identify and recognize that there is a problem. And if you have toxic masculinity, there is a problem. And I will hope that you would take the measures that you need to take, the healing that you need to take in those areas where you can fix those things. I will not be here next week, but we have a guest host, and his name is Will Rucker. He's a precious and dear friend of mine, and he will be coming, speaking to the LGBT community next week. And his subject is going to be, how does toxic masculinity affects the gay LGBTQ community? And he's speaking from personal experience. He's openly gay. He's a great friend of mine, and I really believe that you will be encouraged by what he's going to share. And he's not just going to talk about how it affects the LGBT community. He even goes back to his childhood with his father and some of the things that were spoken over him. And he shares his story from a pure, innocent heart. And I really believe that you should take a listen to him. He's very authentic, very real, raw, to the point. And I couldn't think of a better person to address that subject. So I appreciate Will for doing that. And I'll see you after next week. But Will's going to be with you next week talking about how does toxic masculinity affects the LGBT community. Till then, I'll see you then.
Hi, if you like what you're seeing today, be sure to connect with Brother Henry at www.facebook.com/The Brother Henry and You Show. And also be sure to check out and subscribe to his YouTube channel, which is www.youtube.com/Henry Harris 100. We hope that this has been a blessing to you, and we hope to hear from you soon. Keep watching, because what matters to you matters to Brother Henry.